Turn it off here. You always want to make sure that the video was playing properly. Hey everybody, welcome, and we look up there, by the way. Hey everybody, welcome to our first Sunday live show, and with us is our new guy in Seattle, Nick. So everybody wave hi to Nick. But we're out here in the forest today taking your questions, so be sure and pop them in the question comment section. And my other word of warning is that we've had some internet issues here today, so if we go offline, sorry, we'll be back as soon as we can. And if it looks like we're having a seizure on video, comment in the comment section. We'll see if there's anything we can do. So Nick, take us to our first question.
One person feels like they're clubbing. That's great.
Oh,
glad. We got a question: Toyota Grand Highlander or Chevy Traverse?
Oh, I don't know. There's a new Traverse coming.
Is there?
There is. It's an all new one. And that's all I can tell you is that we know rumor mill says, hang on. Rumor mill says there's an all new Traverse coming. I may or may not have seen it. And I can't tell people that.
But I have not seen it. So
yes.
All I've seen is a Grand Highlander. Not in person though. Yeah. I have not seen that in person.
Oh. So it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like the Grand Highlander a lot. I suppose it depends on what you're after in a vehicle. I like that the Grand Highlander is, of course, going to be one of the more reliable entries to the segment, most likely. Also, Toyota decided to stick two different hybrid systems in there, which was kind of surprising. So you get the regular hybrid and their Hybrid Max system. So you get kind of a lot of hybrid choices if you want it. Yeah. And the price tag is more reasonable than I thought.
Now, where's the Grand Highlander fit in with the new Lexus GX and TX?
That's a tricky one. Yeah, it's basically TX. So Grand Highlander TX, the same thing. But what's weird is the TX, you can't get the 8-passenger seating in it that you can in the Grand Highlander, which I think was a bit of a misstep. But I don't know. I would say, right now, if you want a good deal, if you're buying right now, buy a Traverse because you're probably going to get a lot of cash off on that guy.
Yeah. Let's see. We got someone watching from their local bar in Vegas.
Oh, from a bar in Vegas. Wow. So you can't post picture photos. We need video proof. Picture, it didn't happen there on the bar in Vegas. How many people are watching in this bar?
So we have a question. That's like asking if an S-Class is better than a Corolla. Right. I know it's two different things, but
yep, two different things there.
What do we think of the XC60?
I like the XC60. What do you think of the XC60 as an ostensibly young person?
Volvo has always been kind of a weird one for me. Just up until recent, I started liking them. The Swedish interior was always a little strange to me. The design, like we were talking about earlier with CarPlay and the new infotainment systems. They kind of get away with more screen, less buttons. Yeah. So I'm starting to like Volvo a little more. So I might not have the best viewpoint on an XC60 just because I'm just recent into getting into Volvos.
So now you're when were you born?
Oh God, I don't know if I want to tell you this. 98.
Oh shit. So so my first Volvo was built before you were born.
Oh my gosh.
They've changed an awful lot since then. So that's kind of wondering because like my perspective on Volvo, is going to be different because Volvos were different when I was your age. So, so do they have any? If I say Volvo to you, do you think old man car or do you think, sexy styling, minimalist interior like they want you to think?
I think of two things when I think of Volvo, and I don't think of new ones. I think of the interesting interior, and I also think of the V70Rs.
Okay. I have a V70R.
Did you?
I did,
yeah, I have a weird affliction with those things. I want one, but they seem like they're holding their value really well.
I loved my V70R. Yeah. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a
but see, like when I got my first Volvo, it was definitely like, cardigan wearing professor kind of car.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. The few people I've known that own Volvos in the past, that's kind of their persona.
But now you
So.
can get an XC60 with 455 horsepower and 27 miles per gallon and 40 miles of electric range, and that's a really strong offering, I would say.
Yeah, they got a lot of options for sure.
Yeah,
they're bumping up there with the big dogs. Let's see what else we have. One person says we froze up, but I don't see any other comments. So I think.
Sorry if we're freezing up. Again, we're in the forest, as you can see, and so sometimes internet in the woods is a little sketchy. Let's just say that right now.
So I have a question. Welcome to the channel, Nick. Will you be trading your GX470 for the GX550? Unless Alex starts paying me a lot more money, then no. That is much.
What are your thoughts on the GX550 as a current GX owner?
I love it.
So, okay,
I love it.
Are you offended by the twin turbo?
I'm a sucker for a V8, but that's just not an option now.
Yeah.
So design-wise, I love it. I think it kind of got, in certain colors it looks a little weird, but I think that boxy design is going to age really well.
I like I'm actually surprised they went to boxy somehow.
Yeah.
And that grill is no longer Predator. It's like between yours and the last one.
Yeah,
like
it 5 feet tall.
It got huge. And then now it actually is, I mean, it's not smaller, but it's better. Is Demure right? I don't know. It's because it's still kind of bold, but it's not like,
it's not in your face.
Yeah, it's not weird.
That hourglass shape that they had for a few years was definitely
and it was very harshly somehow hourglass.
It wasn't very hourglass shape. It was more just straight lines.
But
no, I will not be trading in for a GX550. I am still in love with my GX470, so that's going to stay around for quite a bit longer. It's paid off.
How many miles do you have on it?
On the odometer, 194, but I'm probably in the 200s with tire size.
Okay.
But that's not going to go anywhere.
He's part of this odometer fudging business here. With the big tires here. So
Washington State law. If you heard that,
what's new here? Oh, there's an Ultium question. Let's see what the Ultium question is here.
Are the GM Ultium vehicles ever going to ship in meaningful numbers?
So I don't know. Are you a betting man?
Not very good.
Okay.
I am, but I lose money.
So. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the answer to this question either. GM says they're trying, but I don't see the evidence of it yet.
No, enlighten me a little bit. So GM Ultium vehicles, what are they referring to?
Oh, so that's their entire new set of EVs. So Hummer EV, Silverado EV, Lyriq, Blazer, Equinox, etc.
Okay. So it's like the next class of
they've had a lot of production stumbles.
Okay.
So Hummer delivery numbers are still pretty low. We've been waiting for the next generation of things like Blazer and Equinox to come, and the production numbers just seem to be kind of crazy somehow. I don't know what's going on there, but the first production Blazers apparently rolled off the line. So maybe we'll see that soon.
Yeah. It seems like with whatever company for the last couple of years, it seems like we get numbers, like what they're going to be producing. And it just never seems like it comes to fruition. It kind of just seems like they're just saying.
Yeah, the only companies I would say that have produced surprising numbers of battery-powered vehicles lately have obviously been Tesla, because they have the reach to grab the raw materials, etc. They have the long-term contracts already there, and they were planning for scaling up anyway.
Yeah.
Production's been tight for them here and there. And oddly enough, Stellantis. So Jeep with the 4xe, the Wrangler plug-in is somehow the best-selling plug-in hybrid in America, and that required a ton of batteries. And I'm honestly surprised that they were able to get enough batteries for a vehicle on the top 10 sales list in the US to be 45% plug-in hybrid. I mean, it's bonkers.
No, I haven't driven the 4xe yet. What's your thoughts on that? Like, real quick, brief thoughts. I keep seeing them back home. But the
first thing Jeep would say is don't call it a 4xe. It's a 4xe, like 4x4. So, that's Jeep speak. You got to be a 4xe. I like it. I think it's actually fine for most people. The entire people fall into two camps. There's like the fuel economy is bad and the range is low, which is true. But if you look at it instead as an electrified brick thing, because it's really square. I mean, it has no aero treatment practically on the thing at all. And on the average daily commute, you will cut your gasoline consumption in half for the average American. If you're doing 40-mile commute a day, you can only charge it once. You will cut your gasoline usage in half versus the other Jeep models. If you're never charging it, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense. If you can charge it both ways, then you're going to save definitely on it.
Yeah.
And also, you have the ability to do some extra things. So if you like, the electric only operation off-road, you can do that. I think it's too herky-jerky off-road. I'm not a fan of the way the 4xe drives in real tough Moab style off-roading. So if you're actually, climbing up a rock face, and throttle control is super important, this is not its forte. But if you're mud bogging, or you're going through sand, or you're just doing regular camping stuff, actually I like the low end torque, because you get 470 pound-feet of torque, really super low, lots of torque there. You have the ability to now power your camper or your whatever from the built-in plug-in hybrid system, so you can power up to 3.6 kilowatts from the Jeep itself.
Yeah.
So if you take a small Airstream with you somewhere, you can power the air conditioning in the middle of nowhere. That's super handy. And on the gas tank in the plug-in hybrid, you could power your air conditioning for like a week and a half.
Really?
So it's super duper handy on that front. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see how Jeep progresses with the 4xe thing, because we now have a Grand Cherokee 4xe. We know that there's going to be a Grand Cherokee L 4xe at some point in time. There's going to be a Ram 1500 plug-in hybrid at some point in time as well.
So you say that, and that'll take us to our next question.
Mm-hmm.
Here
we go.
Will the TRX go away as the new refresh, or as the next refresh Ram will switch over to the Hurricane engine?
We don't know. I mean, honest answer, PK, is we don't know. But I would suspect that the TRX won't go away until emissions force it. So that's one of the reasons that some of the Hellcat engines did go away, was that there were some emissions changes that had to be done.
Yeah.
So that's theoretically why, like Grand Cherokee, they didn't stuff it into the new one, because they would have had to have redesigned the emissions control systems. It wouldn't have been worth it long term. The timeline wise means that this model year is totally fine with them all. So Durango had to have some slight emissions changes for Hellcat. Also, the Charger and Challenger did. How that will affect the truck lineup, we don't know long term, because emissions regulations are different for trucks than for cars. But I would suspect that it will stay, because Ford's not killing the Raptor R, so they're going to need something there. And a 500 horsepower Hurricane, as much fun as it will be, it's not going to replace it.
I kind of have a second question off of this question. What do you think Chevy's purpose of not building a competitor to the Raptor R or the Dodge or the TRX? Because Chevy has the capability. They have the small block V8s. They have they have
a supercharged one too.
Yeah. So you would think that they came out the ZR2. It's a great truck, but it doesn't fill that need for the Chevy owner if they wanted a high horsepower impractical truck.
This is going to be controversial, but I would argue that Chevy is too conservative sometimes in their engineering to do something like that. Like, clearly they have sports cars, they have the Corvette, and they have crazy Corvettes, right? But GM generally hasn't gone to the same level of one-upsmanship and crazy that like Ford and Chrysler will do to one another. So, like, Dodge is like, we'll just jam a supercharged engine in there. Why not? And Ford's like, we need one too.
Yeah. I wonder if GM has something up their sleeve, because they just, and I don't know the numbers, I don't know the actual number, but they just said that they're going to be like kind of almost revamping their production of the next small block V8.
Yeah.
And that was like recent news. I don't know if they've I don't know if they've even started on that, or if that's actually going to happen, but I wonder if that were to happen, I wonder if they're doing that so they can have.
Yeah. It seems like most of GM's off-road focus has been on AT4X, like in the GMC lineup and the Z71, which I would argue doesn't necessarily have a corollary in the other lineups. So like the way that, especially with the heavy duty lineup, like the way that GM has gone into AT4X trucks for more rock crawling kind of stuff is just sort of a different version of the same in a way, because we have, Raptor R and TRX are Baja style racing things. They're not the one that you want to take on, to Moab, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's not like you'd want to take a heavy duty truck there either, but like that's more in that direction than the TRX.
Yeah,
I would say. So maybe that might be the way they're going.
Yeah.
We should thank someone for their super chat. So let's see here. both on let's find your super chat. I don't know where you went there. Sorry there. Here we go. New protocol, both of our thoughts on the Lexus TX front end. Oh, you hate the departure from the spindle grill. Wow. I actually kind of like the fact that it kind of melts into the front end. What do you think?
Personally, what's interesting is when that first came out, I wasn't really paying too much attention to the launch, and all I saw was the GX. Everybody was talking about the GX, and that's the only front end I saw. And so when I saw the TX front end, it was interesting because it reminded me more of like an electrified vehicle front end.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Where the grill kind of disappears,
but it kind of is like the RX, but it's even more that direction because the RX had that sort of subtle blending, like the plain plastic turns into the little individual elements, and then it kind of merges into the actual grill portion.
Yeah.
And in the TX, it's even more wrapped around there.
I like it a lot. I think.
Yeah. What do you think about the whole, like, do they need to all look the same or should they all look different? Because there's definitely two schools of thought in this in the auto industry. Like, there are brands like Audi where it's the same sausage in different lengths and they all look identical.
Yeah.
And then there are lineups like, I don't know, like the Kia and Hyundai lineup where like they don't all look the same anymore.
And that's how Lexus was for a long time.
Yeah.
With what do you call it? The spindle or the hourglass?
I think they call it the spindle.
Okay.
Some people call it the Predator grill.
Yeah. But they carried that through a lot of their cars and just in different heights almost.
Right.
So
yeah.
I'm glad there is a difference now because I definitely thought it kind of got old.
Yeah.
So yeah, switching away from that I think is going to be good for Lexus, and having those two new versions. Well, TX is all new.
Right.
But the GX is revamped, and
it'll
be interesting to see them on the road. It's different seeing cars in person. You saw them both in person.
Yeah.
I did not. I saw them on video, and
I was surprised how boxy GX is, especially with that sort of F-150 style line where you have the body line and the greenhouse that kind of kicks up as it goes rearward, but instead of in the front door like an F-150, they put it on the back door.
Interesting.
It's not kind of a direct copy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested because they're as far as I can think of it, Lexus is really the only luxury brand that's going in this slightly different direction where they don't all have exactly the same grille and they're all like variations of the theme. Because when I think about it, I mean, BMW, Audi, Volvo, Mercedes, they're all very, very similar design themes. Like there's some subtle changes here and there between some of the EVs and the not EVs, but by and large, they all look very, very similar.
So this actually, funny enough, is what I was going to ask you next. So Tucker Dunn, thoughts on upcoming Land Cruiser?
Oh yeah. What are you reading on the rumor mills? I don't know. You might be more up on the Land Cruiser rumor mills.
I'm not. I've just recently seen the Land Cruiser coming back, but I was going to ask you, what is Toyota's purpose of bringing back the Land Cruiser now that they have the GX?
Yeah,
it's practically a Land Cruiser,
right?
And that's going to make some people angry. But
yeah, and the LX is actually a Land Cruiser.
Yeah,
because there are markets where Land Cruiser is still sold. I guess the first thing, Tucker, is that there's a lot of uncertainty around this, but we'll know soon because I know that I'm going to go see a secret Toyota at probably Land Cruiser because they won't tell us. But like next month, this month, next, I don't know, sometime a bunch of us are flying to somewhere and we're going to see the new Toyota product. And what I'm more curious on is why is it that it appears, mind you, this is subject to change, but it appears that we're going to get a new 4Runner and a Land Cruiser that is smaller than the rest of the world Land Cruiser. So Land Cruiser Prado is what it's going to be for here. And it's going to be called the Prado in other markets. Here it's just going to be the Land Cruiser. And we're going to get a GX. And we're going to get a TX. Or sorry, an LX.
Yeah.
So it's like, and a Sequoia. So on the Toyota side,
all relatively similar.
Yeah, on the Toyota side, we're going to get 3 body-on-frame SUVs. And on the Lexus side, there are 2. So 5 total is a whole lot of body-on-frame SUV.
That is a lot, yeah.
I mean, GM and Ford don't even have this kind of lineup combined.
That's
actually,
Toyota and Lexus bread and butter, though.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them for kind of doubling down almost, but
I mean, 4Runner sells well.
Yeah.
But TX, LX, and GX actually don't sell in enormous volumes. They're, Armada sells more than them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am definitely curious, Tucker. So the new Land Cruiser, all indications point to it being less expensive, which I think is solid because $100,000 Land Cruiser was always a little cray-cray to me. So maybe $70,000, $80,000 would be much more rational. But at that point, I'm also curious how it's going to be differentiated from 4Runner, which is going to be more affordable, maybe more off-roady, maybe not, because I mean Land Cruiser is the ultimate off-road name. How could 4Runner be more off-roady? I don't know. We'll find out. And then Sequoia is the bigger 3-row tow-focused thing. So lots of unanswered questions. I wouldn't be surprised if Land Cruiser ended up 2-row only.
Let's see. When will Honda CR-V 1.5 turbo boost up the horsepower?
I'm going to go with never. Do you think they need to?
Honda doesn't need to do anything. Honda. Like
yeah,
Honda
they
sells
sell
Honda.
they sell all the Hondas, that they can make. So I'm going to go with probably never.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Oh, here you go. Let's follow back on New Protocol's question here. He's it does look a lot like I don't know. I'm actually curious on that one. Do you think it looks a lot like the Grand Highlander? I mean, as much as any 3-row SUV looks like another one, I actually don't find as much Grand Highlander in the design as I thought I would see.
He's asking about TX versus
Grand
TX
Highlander. Versus Grand Highlander, because you've seen them both.
I would have to pull up pictures side by side. I've seen them in such different like 1 month I saw one, so I haven't seen them side by side. So if I were to look, I'd be able to tell. But I think they're like a similar shape, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, but I would say that if you look at the side profile, the shape is also pretty similar to, MDX and a bunch of the others. So as much as an MDX looks like a TX, I think the Ridge is probably a little bit closer visually than that. But I would say that Lexus did a decent job not just sticking a different logo on it. I know some people are super offended by that relationship, but to be honest, in the luxury segment, that is exactly what so many people have been asking for. Is I want a big thing with a luxury logo, better leather, the luxury features, and an actual usable 3rd row. And that 3rd row blows the MDX 3rd row out of the water. I mean, it has almost a foot more legroom, 5 inches more headroom. I mean, that is an actual usable 3rd row.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm kind of surprised that it took Lexus so long. I think that they're going to sell all the TXs they can make, because if you want a better 3rd row in the luxury segment than that, you have to get, there's no Acura that will do it, etc. You have to get a Cadillac Escalade, which is actually not going to have necessarily more comfortable 3rd row, or a Lincoln Navigator or a Grand Wagoneer.
What about an Expedition? Do they have 3rd rows, right?
The Expedition has a 3rd row, but it's going to have a Ford logo, of course. So if you want that luxury brand logo, and that's the question: is if you want a luxury brand logo, and you're in the mainstream luxury segment, is a Lincoln logo or a Cadillac logo or a Jeep logo, are those going to be appropriate logos, or is TX actually going to be the better logo? I would argue for a lot of shoppers, they would rather have the Lexus logo, and the TX is cheaper than all 3 of those options. Like Grand Wagoneer gets really expensive.
Very expensive.
Its 3rd row is more comfortable than TX, but you're going to be paying, $50,000 more for the Grand Wagoneer in that top trim. So
that's a good point. That is a very good point. Let's see, what else do we got here? A lot of comments coming in.
Mistake for Hyundai to end the original Ioniq. Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. What do you think about hybrids like that, like the ultra efficient hybrid thought? We'll click on Caleb here.
You think it was a mistake for Hyundai to end? I don't know. That's kind of out of my
because it's like
my wheelhouse.
I mean, just like it's an interesting question, because high mileage hybrids didn't really sell that well. They had this moment in the sun. The original Prius blew up, and Prius was one of the best selling vehicles in North America for a while. And then Prius sales honestly faded. And what I always found interesting about that is that a lot of car shoppers have moved from thinking about efficiency to thinking about electrification without efficiency. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how efficient your EV is, it's an EV. But a lot of these same shoppers were super concerned about efficiency when they had a gasoline car, and then they buy, I don't know, insert any high performance EV into this equation. Because clearly they're very efficiency focused EVs. Like if you buy a Model 3, very efficient, Ioniq 6, very efficient, etc. But if you ran out and replaced your Prius with a Mustang Mach-E or a Ford Lightning, like you have replaced your ultra efficient thing that runs on this fuel source with a super inefficient thing running on this other fuel source, and I'm not sure how that works in people's heads.
And that's why I personally, and this is from a semi uneducated viewpoint, but I think hybrids is I think we're almost a little too far from going completely EV. I think hybrids, I see manufacturers kind of backtracking a little bit towards hybrid. they like push so hard for EVs, and then now they're like, okay, well, we can't produce them, or they're too expensive. And I think until battery technology gets a little bit better and a little bit cheaper, I think hybrid is going to be a better option, because when you get the economy, you get the boost from the electric motor, and like you have the option where if you do run out of battery, you're not stranded. And so Teslas are just so far ahead of their time just because of the charging infrastructure. So once chargers get better for non-Teslas, or kind of,
and we're getting close there with all the new agreements to move over to Tesla's network, so we can talk about that later. But I would say, Caleb, to this question again, is that Hyundai actually still is pretty dedicated to the hybrid format. The Hyundai Kia conglomerate has more hybrids and plug-in hybrids as separate trim levels than pretty much every other company out there. They did kill the Ioniq, but effectively they replaced it with the Elantra hybrid, which is one of the most efficient entries in the compact segment. It's not as cargo practical as the Ioniq, which fills me with sadness. But we also still have, hybrid Tucson. We have the hybrid Santa Fe. The hybrid Santa Fe looks like it's going to come back in the next generation. And then there are also plug-in hybrid versions of those. And the rumor mill is telling us that we will probably see some sort of plug-in hybrid Santa Cruz pickup truck at some point in time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, keeping the Prius there. Yeah, I think Prius is a little bit different because in Toyota's home market, Prius still sold extremely well, and in the Korean home market, I think Ioniq sales had kind of dropped in favor of some of their other hybrids. So I think the part of the rationale there in their domestic market was, if you can get a 50 mile per gallon Sonata or a 50 mile per gallon Elantra, why get the Ioniq, which is somewhat, oddly styled to some people's eye and jammed in the middle, when you could get the bigger, more comfortable Sonata with the same fuel economy and better performance, or you could get the much cheaper Elantra with similar fuel economy. So that was a tricky one. And then, of course, there's also like the Kia Niro, got a second lease of life in the US, and it's basically Kia's Ioniq.
It's a great rental car, the Kia Niro.
I actually like the Niro a lot. If you want, a solid, affordable, practical transportation, you have to be in this very pragmatic mind for that.
Yeah. Let's see. I just saw a question about your Durango.
Oh,
I think maybe we could.
Did we get a Durango question? Here we go. How long are you keeping your Durango? I mean, until it needs to be replaced and there's something else that could replace it. Yeah. I'm guessing we're into the long haul for the Durango. And the main reason for that is there's not a lot else that is that size that will tow that much.
Yeah. It's also a fun vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, the SRT one's fun. Don't get me wrong. So there's a fun quotient, but you've seen how many miles are on it. It's not a lot of miles because it generally does not move without a trailer connected to it. We drive something more efficient,
and it's
when
horrifically
going somewhere.
efficient. I drove it yesterday for about an hour, and I put about $25 in, and that went right out the window. So
it's
tough.
15 to 16 miles per gallon daily commuting.
You're keeping your foot out.
Yeah, 19 miles per gallon if you're on steady state highway and you can keep the speed limit down. Obviously there's, you can get one that's over 20 miles per gallon. You get the V6 and it's fine. But until we see a mid-sized truck that could tow 9,000 pounds, that's probably the only thing I could replace it with. Yeah. And then, that mid-sized truck's probably not going to have an engine powerful enough to actually tow that kind of weight up hills, is kind of the problem there. Let's go to some of the starred questions. We can tack over there and see who's given us stars here. So here we go. There were that one. Oh, thanks, John, for the super chat there. And then this little guy here, John. Oh, here we go, Nick. Someone has sussed you out here, Nick.
Yeah, I wasn't going to address this one, but yes, I did work for Driving Sports TV. My contract came to an end, and so I moved on, and that was probably about 4 to 5 months ago.
Yep.
And Alex reached out to me, and so we found a good fit for me, and
he was on the open market, and we snagged him. So there we go.
Yep, and that's the power of mingling with people at events. And so my name was out there, and Alex reached out to me, and we found a good fit for me at this channel. So you'll be seeing me quite a bit, and
so you'll be seeing him weekly. He'll be doing full, complete reviews, weekly stuff on the channel and live shows and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little bit different than what I did at Driving Sports TV. I was kind of more behind the scenes / co-hosting sometimes. So it may be a little bit of a bumpy start, but I don't think it'll be a problem once I get used to it. So.
Right into the deep end. Just right into the fire.
Jumping right in. Yep.
Someone is considering a Cadillac Lyriq. That is interesting. As far as I know, CarPlay and Android Auto are not getting dropped in the Lyriq though. So someone will correct us, I'm sure, Crash Test Dummy. If anybody knows for sure, you've heard any rumors, post down there. The rumor mill is that GM is dropping it in the future, but if your car comes with it, from what I'm being told, if your car comes with it, they're not. And that probably has to do with licensing fees. So I think GM's just being cheap and they don't want to pay the fees to license CarPlay and Android Auto. They also want the data. So this is somewhat of a data grab, like we were talking earlier in the day. GM wants to collect all the driving data from their EVs. So if you want a Lyriq and you want CarPlay or Android Auto, I would do it before they disappear, because there may be a time where Lyriq drops it in the future.
Get
But if you get it now, you should have it for there. And the answer as to what's going to replace it, nothing will replace it. And on the Tesla seems to be fine without it. That's an interesting question, because I know a lot of people actually that have some aftermarket kits in their Tesla to add CarPlay and Android Auto. So there's a lot of hacking solutions for Tesla stuff. And a lot of people will, add on the module that lets you CarPlay and lets you Netflix while you're driving and all the crazy stuff.
Only issue I ever found. So I mean, granted, this isn't my 2006 Lexus, but I have CarPlay in there, and it adapts to it kind of piggybacks onto the navigation system that came out in 2006. So it's terribly unreliable.
Oh,
for the most part, it's not bad. I wonder if it's any better in a Tesla, just because it is a newer system and newer technology. But I almost feel like maybe
if you're doing the DIY hacking on the CarPlay in a Tesla, I think you just have to be in that mindset where you've done your own thing, and so it's going to be crazy or whatever.
Yeah, and it's better than not having it.
Better than not having
and that's why I get frustrated when mine disconnects, but it's better than not having CarPlay.
And I'm always surprised, and maybe this is just me, but I'm always surprised. Who's in the transfer portal?
He was in the transfer.
Oh, he was in the transfer portal.
About me.
Oh, okay. Hey, VPulse, thank you for sending cash from one channel to the other. But I am curious. Like, we should do a poll on this at some point and see how many people actually use CarPlay. Because I'm, and maybe people can comment on this down there too. I am personally curious whether I like CarPlay more because I'm in a different car every week and I'm lazy and I want to have that same experience in every car, and I don't want to have to program the car for Waze or use its thing. Is that just me, or does everybody actually like CarPlay?
I don't know, but I think you and I were talking about it earlier today about Apple CarPlay, and it's almost, if you have Apple or Android, which everybody does.
Siri's listening to us.
Yeah, she heard Apple. It almost seems like they don't need to put as much emphasis on the user interface, like in the infotainment system, because every time someone gets into a car and they plug their phone in, you have the same exact screen, maybe different orientation, the same exact screen you had in a previous car or car you own as well. So it's an interesting. I don't know, if they don't have CarPlay, it's almost just like you're jumping back in time.
Right.
That's like, we're so spoiled now.
Yeah, I do like the ability to have my tunes with me all the time. Yeah. Tunes and podcasts are the things that I want. And I want that experience of being able to listen to half of my podcast in this car and move to that car and still have it work. But then that's sort of my question in a way, is if you're just driving your Tesla around and that's your daily driver, then does it really matter? Because you're going to go back in the car that your podcast was playing in before. I will say that if you like interacting with media on your phone, like if you're old school, like I started with an iPod and Apple iTunes, so I have a lot of music on my phone that I bought. It's not Apple Music, it's not streaming, etc. And I like listening to my own tunes on Recycle. Then you have to Bluetooth to your Tesla or your Rivian or some of these other cars that don't support CarPlay. And I do find that a bummer. I don't like the Bluetooth connection thing.
Yeah, let me find this one comment here. EV Pulse. We went over that, right?
Yep. Okay. Just popping up for the extra info if anybody's looking. Yeah, the standalone kits versus the hacked in to make it in the screen. I like the ones where they've hacked in and it is in the screen. That's the way to go.
I wanted to address this question. What happened to Alex's son?
So Brian, you will still see a few Brian videos on the channel because there's still a few in the queue. But Brian decided to move to KBB, so you probably won't see him on camera. Let's take Siri off. You probably won't see Brian on camera actually because he's moved to a written position with KBB. Who knows what the future will hold for Brian? But that is where Brian is now, and we wish him the best.
But again, not his son.
Not my son. Yes, no. So many rumors about that.
A lot of CarPlay.
CarPlay is better than Mazda's navigation. Ooh, wow. I would agree with you there. What did you just were in the CX-50 that we have this week?
So, and I actually worked for Mazda.
But what do you think about their navigation system and the control knob and that setup? Are you offended? A fan? Touchscreen? Not touchscreen?
I find it kind of clunky in today's age. I don't see why. And just to clarify, that's not touchscreen.
Mazdas do have some. My memory is bad on that one. Some Mazdas have touchscreens, but the way they work is weird. Like some of them,
I think it's the CX-30 that has a touchscreen, right? Because the CX-30
the new CX-90 does too. I'm sure someone will correct us down there because I haven't gone up there and touched it.
Yeah.
But the way that Mazda uses the touchscreen is touchscreen will work for CarPlay, but then when you want to use the native interface, it won't work.
Yeah.
That's the tricky part.
Yeah, there were a lot of issues. So I used to be a service advisor at a Mazda dealership, and we had a lot of issues of people. CarPlay was an add-on, same system. All they had to do was just flash it. And so we had a lot of issues of customers paying for it when they were signing papers and then never getting it, or saying it was going to work and it never did. And so it's that's kind of a weird insight, kind of from the inside out. Like,
it took
when they sell the car, that's an option. And
it's not anymore. Now it's standard, thankfully.
Okay. Yeah, this was a couple years ago.
Yeah, that was a weird era. I remember that.
Yep.
And Mazda's dedication to the controller knob is a little bit unusual. Acura also is similarly dedicated to their little touchpad thing. Lexus finally gave it up, but Acura is still there. And I would say that I think the market has spoken. Everybody wants touchscreens.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
Definitely the thing. I understand Mazda's engineering ethos behind it. They claim it's more ergonomic and safer, that you have this knob and you're looking up towards the road and the screen can be further away and higher where it wouldn't be convenient to touch, and then you use the knob and that interaction and eye line time off the road is safer. But
I almost disagree.
It's not useful.
Just because you are still having to look at the screen.
Yeah, you're still having to look at the screen. It makes me want to, burn it with fire. I think it also takes longer because you have to rotate the knob around, so you're staring a little longer. We can go with the one on screen there first. And then you stare at the screen a little bit longer, but your eye line is closer to the road. I'm torn. I just don't like it. I don't like the way that it works. It's too weird.
Yeah. So
when even BMW, Audi, and Mercedes have gone away and been like, nope, let's give them a touchscreen, give them what they want. And Lexus also finally gave us what we want.
Lexus was a struggle for a little bit.
Yeah.
That skinny little.
That was horrible.
So we got PK again. Thank you. When is the 2024 Volkswagen Atlas Drive event?
That is in August.
Okay.
So stay tuned, PK.
Yep.
And we can move on to the next one here.
Another starred. Let's see.
Oh, thanks for the super chat here.
Thank you for all you do, Alex. Much appreciated.
Thanks for that. And then we should thank Daniel. Of course, Daniel just super chatted us $4.99 there. Thanks for
Daniel,
all of
great
that.
beard. That's a great beard.
And then let's see here. Oh, rear ventilation on the I don't know. I don't understand. Honestly, I don't understand some of these decisions, and I'm the first one to try and dive deep into product managers and product engineers' brains when they're developing things. And a little bit of inside baseball. I am usually the one at the drive event where other journalists are going like, why do you think Toyota did this? And I'll be like, well, I can probably guess on that one because it was like these priorities didn't align. But that one, I don't understand that one at all. I don't understand a lot of cars actually that don't have rear air vents. They're really not that expensive. And when everybody else in the segment is doing it, it stands out a lot that you haven't done it as a manufacturer.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in some product, like recently the Buick Envista. Little bit surprised by that. Like Chevy Trax, I could see why Chevy Trax doesn't do it because it's really cheap. But by the time you stuck a Buick logo on it and you want to be premium and you want to be considered against maybe, not quite an equal to a Lexus UX or maybe an Acura Integra, but you want it to be an alternative to those, then why not have a rear seat air vent? That seems weird.
Yeah.
But then Honda does it actually frequently in some of their inexpensive vehicles too. They'll ditch the rear air vents. I'm offended. by the lack of rear vent.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be base level. That's got
Yeah. Cannot possibly be this expensive. It's a piece of extruded plastic. We've been doing it for decades and decades and decades. This is not that hard. But
Yep.
yeah, no, I don't get it. I also don't understand why the Corolla Cross Hybrid has the rear trunk arrangement the way they do, with the way they put the rear wiring harness back there, so you can't have as much storage space, spare tire, etc. That seems like a bad setup in there, but you know.
Let's see here. Got a few more questions.
Favorite fast food chain? Oh, that's always a fun. Oh, and why is it always Arby's? What? It's never Arby's. That's never Arby's is never the answer for me.
This is a controversial thing, but Arby's, this is like after a long night out, a roast beef cheddar just hits the spot with the horsies. I'm embarrassed that I know this. I'm gonna blame my friend Scott for this, because we used to go late at night. We used to go get Arby's and go home and play video games and stuff. And it's such a gross item, but
the wicked pleasure.
Reason, it's so good for some reason. Like,
my wicked pleasure would be Taco Bell.
And did you know that Arby's owns like a lot of the fast food chains now?
I would not be surprised.
They own Sonic. I just saw a video about it last night, but they've just forked out like $100 billion in the last few months just to buy these chains.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the only reason Arby's is still around, is because their conglomerate that owns Arby's owns all these other fast food chains.
Yeah, so, my guilty pleasure would be Taco Smell. And then if I'm more rational and I'm just like, today is the fast food day of the month, Carl's Jr. is probably where I'd go.
We don't have a lot of Carl's Jr.'s back home.
Yeah.
So I don't ever get to.
And they're mostly a West Coast thing. Back east, they have Hardee's, which is not quite the same.
Yeah.
And they're tied with Green Burrito, which is not a Taco Bell substitute. Like, there is no way I would ever be desperate enough to go through the drive-thru and be like, no, I'll take the Green Burrito item rather than the Carl's Jr. item. I don't know why Green Burrito exists. Sorry, any Green Burrito fans, but yeah, it's Taco Bell or Carl's Jr., but never the Green Burrito at the Carl's Jr. That's wrong. That's just wrong.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if I have a favorite fast food chain. In Arby's, it definitely isn't my favorite by any means. It's decent. One item on there. I haven't gotten anything else, but I'm just a chicken sandwich guy. So whoever has the best chicken sandwich, and
this is where I would say Carl's Jr. Get the chicken club lettuce wrap. It is better than the one with the bread. Like, I'm not like an anti-bread person. I don't like order everything as a wrap, but somehow that combo of like the chicken, the bacon, the cheese, the sauce, the everything in the lettuce wrap, fantastic. That's the way to go. Yeah. The bacon's what does it. It's the way to turn an ostensibly healthy burger chicken wrapped in lettuce into something unhealthy, is by drenching it with cheese and sticking bacon in it.
I mean, if I'm going to a fast food place, healthy is not on the menu. Let's see. So, thoughts on BMW's new electric motors without permanent magnets?
I am actually really intrigued by BMW's non-permanent magnet electric motor. So, for those that aren't familiar, not most, but a lot of EV motors use rare earth magnets, high magnets like neodymium magnets, for a non-powered stator design. And because there are multiple ways you can do an electric motor, we're not going to cover them all. But at any rate, so either you have windings on the outside and you have a permanent magnet in the middle, or you can have an excited magnet in the middle, so electromagnet in the middle and also an electromagnet on the outside. Obviously, there are advantages to either of these designs. The advantage to BMW's design is twofold. A, fewer rare earth materials. Fewer rare earth materials means less dependence on certain supply chains that not everybody's a fan of. Neodymium's issue is that right now, a lot of the neodymium in the world is coming out of China. And even if the neodymium comes from somewhere else, it's being processed in China. And geopolitically, this is a problem for Europe and for North America. And the second thing is that by having an electrically excited magnet as your stator, you can also change the magnetism properties of your stator for various different things, because it's not necessarily the most efficient to have a stationary magnet there for every power output level. If you're low power output, high torque, high power output, low torque applications, whatever this mix is, maybe there's an optimum magnetism level or style for the stator that is different. So with BMW's design, it can be changed. So there's less dependence on that. more dependence on copper and other materials that can be more ethically sourced more easily, etc. The one downside is maintenance. So on BMW's motor designs, there are brushes that will have to get replaced because this thing is spinning around, and so you have a bushing and you have brushes in there that will have to be replaced. According to BMW, though, the lifetime of the brushes is about 200,000 miles, and they're designed to be replaceable. So you don't have to replace the entire motor. You just replace the brush design. You'd go in theoretically for service. I don't know how much that will cost, though, because at this point in time, nobody's had to do it. And it's probably going to be a solid 10 years until anybody has to do it. So we'll see how that process works. But I will say that the results seem to be very good, because even in BMW's converted ICE platform vehicles, which are a little on the porky side, curb weight wise, like i4 is not lightweight. The i7's not lightweight either. Efficiency has been stellar. So i4 efficiency is absolutely fantastic. I was honestly shocked. I did not expect the i4 to be that good, especially with fairly wide summer tires, is the one that we were sent. And the range was really solid. So clearly the money spent on R&D there was good. I'm curious to see if anybody else is going to go down that road, because so far we haven't heard much about it. Many other manufacturers doing this. Yeah, lots of different ways to do motors. Most people seem to be going with permanent magnet motors, though.
Interesting.
So let's see here. Move along here.
I'll address this real quick. Crazy Wee Monkey Popeyes does have the best chicken sandwich.
Oh, poor green burrito. And then there we go. Yep. Here, maybe you might be the better. How up are you on Audi RS models? RS6 or RS7?
I was pretty high up. Like I knew a lot about them up until recent. Let's see what this goes. So I was wondering if I should go for the RS6 or RS7. I want the car to hold a value. It was also well, I mean, if you're talking about value, RS6, just because if you can get into a new RS6,
it's true. Yeah.
And
I'm surprised by that, because I kind of like RS7's look more, but they don't seem to be as desirable in the
because
we've had
the RS7. The
right.
RS6 is brand new, and who knows if that's going to stay. I'm sure it will, because it sold.
And there's been this more repeating history. So RS6 has been around longer, and there've been more RS6s here and there, and they keep coming back.
Yeah.
I kind of seriously wonder if we're ever going to get, a resurgence in Euro performance wagons as one last hurrah.
Supposedly BMW is bringing back the 5 Series Touring. That's been a rumor for a long time.
I don't know if I believe it.
Yeah, I don't
know. I'm down on that one.
You see so many rumors.
We'll
now,
see.
So I don't know.
RS3 is the best sounding. I actually really like the way the RS3 sounds. That 5-cylinder is super funky and cool. But
I guess what's best sounding out of all the RS models?
I don't know if it's the best sounding out of the RS model. I do think it's cool, but I don't know if it's the best sounding. Let's think.
The twin turbo V8s sound pretty good. I love the 5-cylinder and 10-cylinder. They both sound similar, and one sounds a little beefier just because it has 5 more cylinders. But
I will say, I think that AMGs sound better than the RSs. Yeah, I know that's controversial.
Well, it's so hard because the RS3 is such a different motor than all the RS.
Yeah. So I think the RS3 is cooler sounding than the V8s in Audi's lineup, just because it's distinctive.
Yeah.
But I would say that the RS V8s don't sound as fun on the outside as an AMG. And on the inside, they're all pumping in digital sound, so they sound fantastic on the inside, right? But it's not real, like BMWs. They pipe in a lot of fake sound. But the AMGs, I'm not clear how they've managed to get through some of the issues with the turbo, because turbos cause there's an interference in the exhaust.
It's a muffler, really.
Yeah, there's a muffler there. So I am actually shocked that they sound as good as they do with the turbo still in the mix. That I think is the thing that I find interesting with the Mercedes lineup.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen a couple questions. This may be the same person. Thoughts on Lordstown? I saw a question earlier about Lordstown.
Yeah, that went so wrong so fast.
I don't know. I don't really know anything about Lordstown. That was kind of. I saw a little bit of it a couple years ago, and then it kind of went to the wayside. Wasn't Ford for a while backing Lordstown, and then they backed down with Rivian, and then backed out of that?
Yeah, there were a few industry connections there for a while, and then there was the Foxconn tie-up. I didn't follow Lordstown too clearly, because they always seemed like this, the also ran that wasn't really gonna make a solid go of it. Rivian had still has a lot more money. And so I always thought if there was a canary in the coal mine, it would be Lordstown trying to make this work truck focused thing. And I'm sad to see it go, but I think they built 7 trucks, 10 trucks, something like that.
Yeah, and you're gonna see this so often. Just these companies come up and then they just disappear. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how it was a long time ago. A lot of companies.
To be honest, their business model never made sense to me.
No, I never looked too far into it to where I understood it enough. But
so it's
you
like
have such big hitters now with these.
Yeah.
With these main domestics, especially.
Yeah. And with Lordstown, their big focus seemed to be on fleet trucks. So they were like, well, our big business is going to be selling work trucks to Fortune 500 companies or this or that or whatever that want to electrify, etc. And I was always curious on that one. Ooh, can I snag a little bit more?
Yeah.
I was always curious on that one because fleet discounts are stupendously huge on big 3 cars. So if you are a fleet customer that's buying at least 25 GM vehicles, you're getting thousands of dollars off of the truck. And there are special fleet only versions that are even cheaper. So like that, if anybody's ever wondered why you see so many Chevy vans and GMC vans and Ford vans on the streets, because Chevy's discounts are enormous. So like, why would you buy, you see a lot of Ford vans because Ford has a solid fleet business and they're tied with other customers. But if you're looking at like mid-level businesses that are buying like 50, 60 vans a year, almost exclusively these people are going with GM, because you could buy a Chevy, full-size Chevy 2500 van for like $19,000. I mean, they are crazy cheap. And the problem, I think, would be when you look at like Ford's fleet discount pricing. Ford will discount Lightning orders for large customers. Most likely we'll see the same with Stellantis and their upcoming electric vehicles. GM is probably going to give some fleet discount on their expensive Silverado work truck. Not a lot at the beginning, apparently. But Lordstown, like, where are they going to come up with the money for the fleet discount program? Like, you're a new startup, you don't have any money, you're not making any money. You can't afford to give a fleet customer $10,000 off of every truck they buy. So the business plan never made sense to me there.
Yeah. Here's another Mazda question. This is actually an interesting one. What are the chances Mazda will revitalize the Mazda speed department? I personally don't see them doing it.
Yeah, I don't see them doing it either.
I don't think Mazda has enough margin to justify dumping money into their R&D.
And what would they put it on? I guess would be the bigger question. Are we going to have a Mazda Speed CX-90?
Probably the
because they don't sell many things. They don't sell many sedans.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, I could see I would love to live in a world where we had a Mazda Speed CX-30 if it got an independent rear suspension. But is that a world that's realistic? I don't know.
Not with
the CX-70. Have you seen the CX-70 pics? You know, the shrunken CX-90 rear-wheel drive option?
No.
That's a world I could live in, where you had a Mazda Speed CX-70 maybe, but I just don't know if they have the cash.
Yeah, I mean, if they brought back the Mazda Speed 3 in sedan form, because they're not going to do a hot hatch. It's just not. I don't think that's in the future, but that would be awesome. That would be very interesting. Now, was there why did I see something about a rotary motor? Or am I?
Yeah, so Mazda brought back the rotary range extender in Europe. So if you're in Europe, you can buy an MX-30, which is their little electric thing, with a small single. Someone will correct us. I think it's a twin rotor, or it might be a single rotary engine. But it's much smaller than any they've ever produced before. It's a much smaller rotary, and it's powering a generator, so it'll extend the range of your EV. There. We don't know whether that's coming to the US or not, but I really want to see it here, mainly because I think I want to see it EPA tested. Range extenders have never done well fuel economy wise in the US, whether we're talking about the Chevy Volt or the BMW i3 or the Outlander plug-in hybrid that's up in the driveway. This whole serial hybrid range extender thing, I think a lot of people end up disappointed in the fuel economy. But this could change that because the rotary is really light. You know, it's going to be the newest of the range extending bunch. I'm just really curious to see what it does.
Yeah, Mazda Speed Miata.
Mazda Speed Miata, and that would make sense.
I don't know why I didn't think about that.
But, you know, Mazda's always kind of argued that like every Miata is kind of like a Mazda Speed Miata.
Yeah.
But
what are your what's your quick thought on a Miata? Do you like them?
I like them, but this is where people always want to lynch me. I don't think an MX-5 is a sports car. I think it is a sporty car. I think it is a fun car, but I have troubles calling it a sports car when a Camry will blow its doors off.
Yeah.
And then people will say, well, a Camry won't handle like an MX-5. And that is definitely true. But you can find mainstream four-door sedans that will outhandle it on a figure eight and on a skid pad.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
So like that's tricky for me. You know, it's like it is absolutely fun. It's a blast. It's a special kind of experience. It's a unique kind of vehicle. But I think the problem is the bars have changed and the benchmarks have changed now. And so now that you have, you know, cars that can do crazy things with a Camry logo on it, then you need to raise your bar on your sports car or you're getting left behind.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Did we address this question?
Which one? Oh, this one. Here we go. Thoughts on the Ultium and Lyriq being wagons in disguise. Yeah, what do you think about this whole like calling it an SUV, but it's I mean ground clearance of a Mustang? Is this an SUV? What makes an SUV an SUV? It's sort of a I don't know if it's a question with an answer. No, not SUVs?
I don't know.
What should we call them?
There's just so many types of vehicles now in so many different platforms. Like, I don't think anyone would ever off-road a Lyriq.
No.
But
yeah, and if you're thinking about it, don't do it.
Yeah, yeah. I see the question though, because it does look like an SUV, but it's almost like, well, I don't know. I haven't seen one in person, so I don't know. I haven't seen dimensions. Okay.
I think it's rational that we're actually moving back to some wagon formatted vehicles. Like Ioniq 5 is kind of wagony, because they're a practical shape. You know, I can't blame them for doing that. And if you have a really boxy thing, it's not going to be efficient for being an EV. So that's kind of tricky there too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to address this question because I have an opinion.
Which one here?
It was about the Accord. I think it's up here. They asked what your opinion is on the new Accord. Their Honda groups hate it. I think it's right there. Troy Booker.
Yeah. My thoughts on the Accord are that it's a little bit boring, to be honest. I actually find a lot of Honda's designs to be boring. And it's not that Honda was ever exciting, but Honda went more for cleaner, elegant lines, I would say. I actually like the previous generation Accord's design a bit more.
I agree, yeah.
In the interior, I think I especially liked in the old Accord, just generally design-wise. Like the new Accord definitely bumped things up in materials, etc. Yeah. But the design being so similar between all of their smaller products, like Civic and Accord, and
so that's
all that having same interior things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is I'm not a huge fan. I do agree with you that the last generation of Accord, I liked that exterior. I do like the interior of the new Hondas, but I do think as the Accord is kind of like the bigger version of the Civic, they should have done something a little bit different with the interior because it's the same interior as a Civic.
Yeah,
I think the Civic looks light years better than the new Accord. I know they're two different vehicles, and
I like the Civic more than the Accord too. I would say
I saw an Accord, and the reason I wanted to address this question is because I saw an Accord the other day for the first time in person, and it just looks incomplete to me. Like the design just looks like they kind of just were like, "That's good enough."
Yeah,
like I don't know. The front end is very like it's almost like
very Ford Taurus like that. The way the grille looks is very Ford Taurus. I think that I could have accepted it if Honda had doubled down on Honda's supposed core mission, which is the fun to drive thing combined with the Honda reliability thing. So if they'd kept the 2-liter turbo and, you know, kept a manual transmission, even though it makes no business case, if they were like, we're going to keep these because they're core to the brand and they're essential, that would have made more sense to me. And I think I would have been more excited about it, but they didn't. And that makes me sad.
Yeah.
So we have a super chat there. Thanks, Drew, for the super chat. Car, people can hear your personal conversations. People can hear your
I'm not sure I understand this question.
I'm not sure I understand that question, Drew. So you might need to clarify that one. I mean, if you're using hands-free calling, then people should be able to hear what's going on in the car.
But I guess my hang up is through a car, people can hear your personal conversations. Not the same when you listen to music.
Yeah, you might need to clarify that one. Let us know and we'll come back to you. I saw another question in here that was worth answering here on Nissan's e-hybrid system. Nissan's e-Power hybrid system, I think part of the reason we haven't seen it in the US is that their efficiency numbers aren't great. The first thing to remember when you look at some of the European numbers, like I've seen some UK numbers on Nissan's e-Power serial hybrids, remember that the gallon is 25% larger in Europe. So this affects a lot of commentary on Outlander plug-in hybrid, because we get a lot of Outlander plug-in hybrid thoughts, or comments rather, from Canada. Apparently the Outlander plug-in hybrid... people can hear. Oh, we'll come back to you, Drew, in just a second. So a lot of Outlanders are sold. Outlander plug-in hybrid is sold in Canada, and of course, Canada, when they're referencing gallons, most frequently seems to be referring to imperial gallons. So in these Facebook chat groups where they're like, "Oh, these Americans are crazy. I'm getting way more than 26 miles per gallon in my Outlander hybrid. I'm getting 30-something miles per gallon." And when you check in on them, they're using imperial gallons. And it's like, okay, yeah, but that is not the same gallon we are talking about here. So you have to remember this conversion. So 30 miles per gallon imperial gallons is not great, actually. Like, you should be getting a RAV4 hybrid would be getting almost 50 miles per gallon in imperial miles per gallon. So that's the difference. So it's like you might be getting 30 in your Outlander. If you had a RAV4, you'd be getting 50. And that translates to 40 miles per gallon in the RAV4 in the US, about 25 or so, 26 in the Outlander in the US as well. So that's the important conversion. Also, when you look at European fuel economy estimates, they are bonkers nutso wrong. Just Europe has just never bothered to restructure their fuel economy estimates because, I don't know, their shopper maybe is different. And all fuel economy estimates, mind you, should be looked at in a comparative way. Like, this will tell you this car is better than that car. That does not mean that's what you're going to get. In the US, the EPA has continually struggled with this and had more of a mission to try and make them more real world. So they've continually restructured the fuel economy process. But highway fuel economy in the US, the way that testing works, it still averages a speed of 48 miles an hour. In most of the test cycles, the air conditioning is not on. So you're talking very optimistic, which is why some hybrids, especially serial hybrids, seem to do well in these fuel economy tests. Like Outlander plug-in hybrid, Honda's hybrids, Honda's two-motor hybrids do relatively well in highway tests in the US, but in real-world tests at 75 miles an hour, your Accord's going to be getting way lower fuel economy than a Camry hybrid. And even on the EPA highway test, that Camry is 10 miles per gallon lower. The Accord's 10 miles per gallon lower than a Camry hybrid, just because of its design. So that's certainly an important thing to keep in mind when comparing. Drew got back to us, and I think he meant that, when you're listening to a car conversation, like the speakers and the doors, like people outside can hear your.
So he clarified here, and then he also said people from outside can hear your personal conversation. Oh, that's what we have here.
Yeah.
Someone, let's see.
I think that's just sort of the nature of the voices reverberating, on the door panels. Well, yeah.
Crazy Wee Monkey, voice call compression boosts only a few frequencies versus the wall of noise that is music. That makes it easier to understand the noise from outside, which was exactly what I was going to say. Is when someone talks, it's like a lot of people are fairly monotone, and so it's just
super easy.
And music has such a such a broader range of frequencies. So I think that's probably why, and it is super annoying because I hear people on the phone all the time driving by, and it's obnoxious. So
if you're yelling at your children or breaking up with your spouse, don't do it on the speakerphone. That's probably the rule. Everybody will hear it. With that V6 hybrid, here we go. So that's I think a good question. This is, I think, a good example of why I am curious that Toyota is going off in a different direction with Hybrid Max. Toyota's hybrid system, their planetary power split system that was seen in the Prius, the Camry, the Corolla, all manner of Toyota models until recently, it is a really ingenious design, and it is very, very efficient. But I'm curious that Toyota now has brought one back, because it seemed like they were going in this Hybrid Max direction with the 2.4-liter turbo and the 6-speed auto and the dual motor thing, and that system is not as efficient. That is fantastic. The reason they stopped doing some of that, and I'm surprised they brought it back, according to Toyota, was that they're trying to focus more on four-cylinder engines. And that V6 hybrid system is the same engine family as the V6 that they're replacing and everything. So, we no longer have a V6 Highlander. We don't have a V6 Grand Highlander. We don't have a V6 in the Tacoma. We don't have the V6 in the Camry for the next generation either. So they're killing lots of that V6 engine family in favor of the smaller four cylinders. So that's why I was actually surprised they brought back that system for their plug-in hybrid. Why they're not doing it in everyone now that it still exists, I really don't understand, because you can get high horsepower out of it, etc. The one thing that Toyota has said in the past with that particular system is that it's not as great at towing. So towing and hauling heavier loads, they felt that the 6-speed automatic transmission was a better option. The Hybrid Max powertrain, they also decided to use the electric motors in the rear in a different way. It has more of a traditional stepped automatic transmission feel instead of the CVT-like feel. And some customers complain about the way that the other traditional hybrids feel for Toyota. But it is kind of a curious thing that fuel economy is so good with that original hybrid system that they went off in this less efficient direction. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Who should we answer next? What is our favorite?
I'll say hi to Paul. Hey, Paul. And same thing to Norman. Both saying hi to me.
Oh, more hit hybrids in the midsize truck. That's a good. I'm actually interested in that. What do you think of the upcoming Tacoma hybrid? Do you think it will be efficient?
It never has been in the past, so I don't know.
Because Tundra hybrid, you drove Tundra hybrid, right? Or you just drove the regular Tundra?
No, okay. I drove both.
And Tundra hybrid is not stellar on the efficiency. I mean, you can get a V8 American truck with similar efficiency.
And here's a hot take, and I know Toyota would hate to hear this. I enjoyed driving the non-hybrid Tundra much more than I enjoyed driving the hybrid.
Yeah, me too.
It seems very unrefined, and what I mean by that is it almost seems like the systems are fighting each other in where
the clutch not a good idea.
Yeah, in just the twin turbo V6, it seemed way lighter. The transmission seemed to shift a lot better. It still has way more power than you would think for not having that extra boost from the hybrid motor. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the Tacoma, just because it's a much smaller platform.
Yeah.
Aren't they doing the smaller version? They're not doing the 3.5.
Right.
They're doing the 2.8.
Yeah. They're doing the 2.4. And so the hybrid system thematically is similar to Hybrid Max in Grand Highlander. It's a totally different hybrid system, different transmissions, etc. But like the theory of operation is somewhat similar to that. Also similar to like Grand Cherokee 4xe, that design wise.
Yeah.
So I think that we're not really going to see a huge fuel efficiency improvement because of that. Like, you don't see an enormous difference between Grand Cherokee and Grand Cherokee 4xe, Wrangler and Wrangler 4xe. Those are all very similar designs. Like, BMW, 4-cylinder versus 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid, same design actually that Toyota is using in those thematically for its hybrid system. So I'm guessing maybe 1 to 2 miles per gallon better.
Yeah.
But Ford could very easily do a hybrid Ranger. They have the hybrid tech. They have a hybrid F-150. They have a hybrid Explorer, same drivetrain. They could just jam it under the hood there and do it. I'm curious to see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be. Have you seen the new Tacoma in person?
Yeah, I've seen the new Tacoma in person. It looks pretty good. I'm actually surprised that they decided to go in some of the directions they went. They leaned into a lot of the Toyota-like things, and then they leaned more heavily into fuel economy than before, for better or for worse. Like, it has an enormous air dam. Like, that thing is, maybe you get 5 inches of clearance.
Yeah. But that's only on certain models, right?
Most of the models, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, TRD Pro is not going to get it, but TRD Sport's going to get it. Limited's going to get it, etc. You could take it off and obviously give yourself an extra 5 inches of clearance, but they were really, really solidly saying, we did this for fuel economy. We have, all the other active aero treatments to the vehicle for fuel economy, etc.
That'd be an interesting test to see how
yeah.
big of a difference that'd make. Like do 100 miles with it on, 100 miles with it off.
Yeah,
and
supposedly it's noticeable. That's the claim. So then they also
Yeah.
smoothed out the underbody aero in it more, etc. I'm just super curious about that hybrid system. I'm really interested to see what
I'm excited to see the next
what this
generation.
thing does.
I wanted to. So we'll do this one. Then I have one
Okay.
right after this. Why does the CX-90 PHEV PP not have the same features? This is a you question.
I think this is because Mazda was frightened to have a price tag that was too high, is mainly it. So I was expecting CX-90 plug-in hybrid to be about 15 grand more than it actually is MSRP wise, and it ended up actually quite a bit more affordable. And I think that's mainly why. And I have a feeling that Mazda was really, really cautious about not getting too far above MDX and XC90 pricing, because it feature set wise, I think they could have pushed that envelope, and the interior is really solid, etc. But then they really would have been up there at Volvo pricing.
Yeah. One, I'll address this really quick. Someone said, "Are we seeing a comeback of wagons?" I sure hope so. I love wagons. I know that.
But then we're car guys, so
yeah.
It's like it's
some people don't like them, but everyone that I've heard that doesn't like them, I feel like there's more that do. Another good one.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, we'll go back. We'll come back to you. Which one?
This one right here, Mr. Guru Little. This is a great
Tacoma?
question. So
I've actually a good question. Yeah,
I've actually tested. Previous channel I work for, we have a video comparing the two. The Tacoma. So we compared a TRD Pro versus a Pro 4X Frontier.
That's an interesting comparison. Yeah,
the Frontier,
not quite the same thing.
The Frontier has more power. The transmission, I believe, has more gears. More gears. I personally like the Tacoma more. It's way more refined. The car's been the same for the last 10 years. It's tough though because they're similar pricing, the Pro 4X versus the TRD Pro. Now, if you go lower end, I don't know about that, but we're talking about like the off-road versions.
Right. And you can bet that the Frontier is going to be cheaper with this next generation.
Yeah. Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the Frontier Pro 4X was a tad bit cheaper than the Tacoma.
Yes.
But I think our conclusion was that the extra money is worth it for the Tacoma.
And it kind of varies on...
The suspension was the suspension was way different. Like the Pro 4X, we like kind of caught a little bit of air and it bounced a lot more on the landing rather than the Fox Tune TRD Pro suspension.
Yeah.
Definitely dampened it a lot more. So
I would say in like regular run-of-the-mill trims, like just like a regular, mid-level trim of either one, Frontier is going to be more refined though. Like
that's a hard comparison.
That kind of daily driving.
Does the Frontier non-Pro 4X have any sort of off-road doodads? Like, do they have like a locking rear diff?
You can get a locking,
because you can get a non-TRD Pro with crawl control, locking rear diff.
Crawl control, I don't believe so, but you can get a locking diff in a lot of different Frontiers.
You can get a crawl control in off-road,
right?
TRD off-road.
If you're just buying a mid-level truck for like regular truck things, though, you don't crawl control in a Costco parking lot. But I mean, you could crawl control over the curbs. But I would say if you're looking for a daily commuter, weekend DIY truck, towing, hauling, that sort of thing, not off-roading, then I would say Frontier is going to be the more refined one for the current generation. It's a Mercedes 9-speed, which Mercedes is not my favorite transmission maker, mind you, but I do like that 9-speed more than the ye olde transmission in the Tacoma. I also like the engine a bit more. I'm curious to see the engine and transmission combos in the new Tacoma, though. So the new Tacoma, I mean, it's brand new, so it's probably going to be more refined than the Frontier. I would assume, hope. But if you want a naturally aspirated V6, it's the only way to go Frontier now because Toyota's killing it. And it's going to be basically like Frontier, Gladiator, and that's it. I mean, nobody else is going to have a naturally aspirated engine. That's kind of it. Ridgeline, I guess, if you want to throw that into the ring.
Yeah, let's see.
Let's go back to there was a CX-90 follow-up question at the bottom. About something about rear.
So there is this one.
There we go.
This one up here as well. So we'll go to this one.
I think the reason people complain about the CX-90's rear seats is that Mazda had promised us all in advance that we would be blown away by CX-90's rear seats. Also, in the segment that CX-90 is playing in, because Mazda is trying to do this, we are premium, but yet we are also Highlander, Grand Highlander competition. So in the world where when you look at the sales data and you look at consumer cross-shop data, by and large, Mazda CX-9, and by extension likely CX-90, is not being cross-shopped against XC90, MDX, or that segment. It is by and large being cross-shopped against Pilot, Highlander, Telluride, Palisade, etc. In that, remembering that, keeping that in mind, the third row is disappointing. And the third row is also smaller than like Dodge Durango, which is also rear-wheel drive. Also tighter in some dimensions than Explorer, which is also rear-wheel drive. So I think that's why some people were upset about CX-90's rear seats. I kind of suspected that it wouldn't be enormous when I first saw it. We weren't able to sit in it the first time that I saw it. But I wasn't too surprised because it has this really long hood and it grew a lot. And it's like, well, the hood got a lot longer, so clearly there's not going to be a lot of room on the inside. And that's just the reality there. If you want a big back seat, right now it's going to be Telluride, Palisade, Atlas, or Grand Highlander. And Grand Highlander in some dimensions is going to be bigger than all of them. Or minivan, you know.
Let's see. So this is a kind of a change of subject.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. This I have long wondered this one, the twin turbo plug-in hybrid in Aviator. I don't know why Ford doesn't put it in the F-150.
Maybe just to create a difference between the two brands.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the Lightning, they've got a hybrid F-150. Yeah, I don't know. This is a perplexing one. Yeah. Some of the logic, as I have understood it, with some of the decisions around not to plug in hybrid your truck specifically, and hybridizing trucks sort of more broadly, has been weight. So the more weight you add to the drivetrain of the truck, the less payload you have left. So it's a balance, which is always why like those luxury trucks have such low payloads, because the more doodads you add to the truck, the less you can put in it. And this is also why we have aluminum bodies in the F-150, because the more weight you can take out of the structure, the more weight you can put back in with payload. So, you know, in a crossover or SUV, it's easier to forgive the payload because you're not towing, you're not doing that in that vehicle. But in an F-150, if you added an extra 800 pounds of batteries, or my memory may be bad, I think the Aviator's plug-in hybrid battery pack is somewhere in the 600 to 800 pound range, then you've got a lot less weight that you can put in the bed. Packaging also ends up being a bit of a concern. Where exactly do you stick the modules? But Jeep has proven that you can jam a solid battery pack even in a Wrangler, which has got a really tiny frame. Yeah. So clearly it's doable, I would say.
Let's see. We had a couple questions about Volkswagens. So one that I did see that I can go back and try to find was, when do you think that the Volkswagen Buzz will go on sale? ID Buzz.
They have said the end of this year. So it should be on sale this year. There will be a drive event, I have heard, this year. I don't know whether I will be going to it. I don't think we're going to trade the Outlander for an ID Buzz because of its price tag. We don't have any idea exactly on its price tag, but it's most likely to be over $60,000. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that Volkswagen is not positioning it as an electric Sienna or Pacifica or Odyssey. Volkswagen is positioning it as a high-end nostalgia vehicle. So think electric bug kind of thing, that kind of positioning. So all ID Buzzes, at least at the beginning, there may be less expensive models in the future, but at least at the beginning, all ID Buzzes are going to be, you know, massaging front seat, you know, leather upholstery, the snazzy bits that we've seen on all the stories that have been on it. Like that Buzz, that's the one that it's going to start at. So maybe later we'll see a model with cloth seats. Maybe later we'll see a model with smaller batteries or less powerful motors or something like that. But that's not the direction they're going in from the beginning. So it's probably going to be over $60,000. I would not be surprised if some versions hit maybe $70,000, because that's probably where we're going to see a number of other 3-row vehicles. Kia EV9, not cheap. Volvo EX90, not cheap. Rivian R1S, not cheap. And that's kind of the world of 3-row electric vehicles at the moment, outside of something like a Model X. Or a very small 3-row vehicle like a Tesla Model Y with a 3rd row, but the 3rd row in the Model Y is very, very, very small. So
Yeah.
not the same kind of vehicle at all.
So I'm gonna pick this one. I saw a question earlier about Jaguar, and I wonder if you have any.
Oh, yeah, poor Jaguar.
So what's an update with them? Because I saw, I don't know if it was Marcus as well earlier, but they were asking for what's going on with Jaguar. I have no idea.
I don't know. Nobody knows what's going on with Jaguar. I know some
No.
people that work at Jaguar Land Rover, and all I ever hear from them on the record, off the record, is Land Rover, Land Rover, Land Rover, and never anything about Jaguar. So poor Jag. No one knows. The sedans are fading. Jaguar's thing with sedans. Jaguar tried a SUV reboot, which I never understood, because like, what's the point of a Jaguar sedan if you've got Land Rover? And they spent decades going, once the tie-up happened with Ford, etc., they spent decades going, Jaguar doesn't make SUVs. If you want an SUV, there's a Land Rover right here in the same dealership, and you can buy the Land Rover instead. And then now all of a sudden we have Jaguar SUVs, which I thought were fine. There's nothing wrong with the Jaguar SUV, but why buy the Jag SUV over the Land Rover when you're at the same dealer?
What were the price comparisons? Like a
very similar
Range Rover Sport or a Range, like an
Evoque,
Evoque versus
the Evoque versus the E-Pace, very similar. And that's the thing. It's like, it's personality shifts and it's always like, well, the Jaguar is the more road focused one, and this one's the more off-road focused one, but it wasn't an enormous amount of daylight between the two. And then I didn't like Jaguar's styling update. I had 2 XJs and I loved them to death. And then Jaguar redesigned them to be very modern looking, and I didn't want one anymore. I was over. It was done. My love affair was complete. So I don't know. I'm filled with sadness.
Yeah.
And they're not even making their own electric car. Like the I-Pace isn't even built by them. It's built by Magna Steyr in Austria. So, yeah, go figure. The 3 brands, yes, that is interesting. Range Rover, Discovery, and Defender. I don't understand that. Did you hear that?
No.
That's the news, is that Jaguar Land Rover has decided to call the parent company JLR, because everybody called it that anyway, I guess. And then Land Rover is no longer Land Rover. They're going to be 3 brands: Range Rover, Discovery, and Defender. And how this is going to be branded at dealerships, I don't know. But I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that it's always been a Land Rover Range Rover, which was awkward. But Land Rover Discovery, like, I never saw what was wrong with that.
Yeah. Let's see. Any rumors on details or ETA on a new Ridgeline? Still one powertrain?
Yeah, we know it's got to be coming soon because they redesigned Pilot.
Yep.
So Passport and Ridgeline are next, obviously. But Honda's on their own time schedule, and they're not in a hurry. And they seem to not have a problem producing a series of vehicles that, ostensibly are all closely related in various different eras. So some car companies, like the moment you see this replaced, that's coming because they're built on the same family and the same product line and the same whatever. Like the moment one Volvo gets an engine, they're all going to get the engine because they all use the same one. Wrangler just got refreshed, so we know that Gladiator's coming super duper quick because they're very, very collaboratively designed there, etc. With Honda, it's just so unknown because they will let the products hang out on an old platform for a while. So many rumors are swirling on that one. The general rumor has been probably the same drivetrain as in Pilot. So about 300 horsepower, 10-speed automatic transmission, probably still the super handling all-wheel drive system, iVTM4. Unlikely to be a hybrid, so no hybrid rumors there because Honda does not have a large segment hybrid available. Also, towing, payload capabilities, all of that is probably going to stick pretty close to the existing Ridgeline.
Yeah.
Passport is probably going to come first, is my guesstimate on that, because Passport's an easier design because it's a shrunken pilot, and that's probably what Passport will continue to be.
Yeah. All right, Drew, we'll come to your question here.
Drew's occupying all of our questions.
Yeah, a lot of Volkswagen questions. Are Volkswagen Product Explainers missing the mark? Nostalgic cars don't last long. Not sure ID Buzz wouldn't been the car to bring to the US. I see a one generation vehicle.
I mean, it could be, but you can make a lot of money on nostalgic cars. I mean, PT Cruiser, what's often made fun of, lasted a really long time and made a whole lot of money for Chrysler. So, if you hit the nail right, the first Bug really did Volkswagen a lot of good in the US. That was a time where they really needed a hit, and the Bug was the hit. They kept it on too long. You're right. They kept trying to make fetch happen after a while, and it just didn't work. Yeah. But my next door neighbor has a Volkswagen Bug convertible, one of the last ones, and I'm surprised, but she is still filled with nostalgic love for her Bug, and it works for some. But a one generation vehicle, sure, that's fine, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the one generation hit for VW. If they had a hit and they could then take that and do another hit, that would be something. Like if they could do an ID Buzz and then the next ID whatever is a modern futuristic 3-row thing, that could be a great segue. ID Buzz after ID Buzz, I don't know. Who knows what the future holds? We should have one last question as we're coming up on our time limit here. Who wants to have the last question here?
Oh, real quick, I wanted to ask you this question. I saw it earlier. I can't really find it, but someone asked you about the comfort suspension on the Model Y. Since Teslas aren't in our fleet, have you driven Teslas?
Yes. So we rent Teslas from time to time. The Model Y's suspension I find a little bit too uncomfortable. We'll go for a last existential question here when we get to the last question. So sorry, guys. Last question here. But I don't find Tesla suspensions comfortable at all, except for the S and the X. S and the X, yeah. The big Teslas ride really well. Model 3 and Model Y, I just don't like the firm and bouncy thing. They're relatively low-slung, low ground clearance vehicles, very little suspension travel for a relatively heavy car, and so that leaves you no option other than hitting your bump stops.
Yeah.
So the only option from firm and bouncy, where we have a progressive spring rate that gets really, really firm at the bottom end, is hit the bump stops all the time, which is not good.
Yeah.
So that's the way it's only ever going to be, unless they give us more suspension travel and an adaptive suspension system.
So the question he had was about their new quote-unquote comfort suspension. So is that a different suspension than what is normally on there?
Yeah, so this is an attempt at trying to quell some of this. I haven't driven that one, but that's, from what I understand, they've given it a little bit more ground clearance to give it a little bit more suspension travel. And I'm really curious to see that. So if anybody has one, you can reach out. If you're in the Bay Area, you can reach out and let us test one. But I would say that this particular suspension tune is not exclusive to Tesla. A lot of battery electric vehicles are going down the same rabbit hole for the same reasons. Like Mach-E has a very similar ride to a modern Tesla. That sort of firm and bouncy, somewhat brittle ride sometimes. It's better in the ones with adaptive suspension system, though, because that is one way to fix it. So Mach-E GT rides so much better than a regular Mach-E, oddly enough, because of that ability to control the damper motions a little bit better. But ground clearance also affects this, or suspension travel. So like part of the way EV6 and Ioniq 5 are, the reason they're styled a little bit differently with the slightly higher cowls than a Mach-E is because they gave it more suspension travel. So that's why they're softer sprung than some of the others. They're also a little bit lighter, so that helps in this process. But yeah, so if you have a new comfort suspension in your Tesla, bring it on down. We'll give it a whirl. Otherwise, as soon as one hits the Turo fleet, we'll probably end up renting one.
Yeah.
But that's the direction we go. I have thought about buying a Model Y as our next long-term vehicle. There's a lot of content on it. I think it might be oversaturation. So while I personally might be interested in it, I don't know if anybody else is interested in this content. So we'll see how that goes. But what are your thoughts on the direction of Ford Motor Company and their lineup and their EV direction here?
I don't know. I'm not much of a Ford guy personally, but as a non-biased, like just looking at it from the outside, I think they found what works for them. And the things that
The
work for
models
them.
have been popular.
Yeah, I mean the F-150 couldn't be more popular.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Mustang. Were they not saying that they were going to discontinue all cars? Or was that all cars?
Sedans. So Ford is done with
Okay.
sedans only. Mustang
Gotcha.
will live forever, theoretically. But yeah, I mean, Mustang's doing well, and of course the Charger going off into the sunset. I mean, it's probably going to be a huge increase in Mustang sales with the new Mustang.
I think the new Mustang looks great.
It does look really good. I like the interior. I know a lot of folks have not been a fan of it, but I actually like it. I think the 2-screen setup is fantastic, and the Fox body digital graphics. You can get the Fox body nostalgic dials. I love it.
Yeah.
I am also surprised that Ford was surprised that the Maverick would do so well, because Ford cannot build Mavericks fast enough, especially the hybrids. And Ford is this like, oh, well, we were blown away by the demand. And it's like,
now, one thing I do need to see from Ford is, I know there's been talks about it, but a hybrid all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Because right now they only have that hybrid front-wheel drive. And my neighbor has one. He actually has a second Ford Maverick on order just to have a second one, which is, I can't believe it.
Aaron a spare.
Yeah. So he has the hybrid front-wheel drive version. He gets about 40 miles a gallon in the city, which is fantastic. Amazing. And it's perfect for what he needs. It's a tiny little bed, but he just throws a kayak back there and it sticks all the way out.
And you can put 8-foot things in there if you're willing to have them hang out a bit. It's like, you can do it. You can do the home improvement things.
Yeah, most of my experience has been in the EcoBoosts, whether it's all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. It's such a fantastic truck that they need to double down. Yeah. And they need to start pumping these things out, because many trucks are kind of back. I mean, I know that they did the same thing. Hyundai did the same thing with the
Santa Cruz.
Yeah, Santa Cruz, sorry.
And I liked the Santa Cruz. And then because the Santa Cruz launched first, and I was like, Santa Cruz is fantastic. It's a little funky looking, but it's fantastic. This will be great. The world will see a whole new era of small trucks. And then Ford's like, hold my beer. We're making a better small truck that's even cheaper and has a hybrid. And that's why nobody buys the Santa Cruz.
Yeah, that's a tough competition.
But I am surprised, like the Maverick hybrid's popularity. And a lot of people, they're conspiracy theories around this. Like Ford couldn't really have been surprised about the popularity. They're sandbagging the whatever, No, I honestly think Ford really honestly thought that the hybrid Maverick would not go anywhere, because manufacturers had been telling us this for years. Like I talked to Toyota. Every time I talk to Toyota, why is there no hybrid version of the Tacoma yet? Well, we're working on something, but we don't think that's what consumers are interested in. This generation launches, and you're talking to the engineers about the fuel economy, and they're trying to keep your expectations in check. Well, we're not aiming for Prius numbers here on the Tacoma pickup truck. Why not? Why are we not aiming for this? Clearly, this is what customers want. And the answer from GM, from Chrysler, the Stellantis group, from Toyota, from Honda, even on Ridgeline, was they keep claiming truck customers are not interested in fuel economy. And I call bullshit on that.
Yeah,
because Maverick is the ultimate proof of this. They keep claiming truck buyers are not interested in fuel economy. All they care about is towing, little bit of payload here and there, towing. And it's like, well, sure, but why not offer a product that could do both? Like, you could have a Tacoma, and you could take that Lexus rear-wheel drive hybrid system in Europe that's really efficient in the Lexus IS, and you could jam that puppy in the Tacoma. It's a rear-wheel drive system. It would fit. It would work, and you could get a Tacoma with 30 miles per gallon. Why wouldn't you do that? And you could say, if you want the hauling truck and you want to be able to tow 1,000 pounds in your Tacoma, that's the Tacoma for you with 30 miles per gallon. You want to do this other stuff? We've got this Tacoma for the rest of you. And you could do both. And they very, very resistant, but Maverick proved that there is a huge market for this that was untapped, but they were so unprepared. They could not build enough of the regular ones.
It also came at a bad time where any production of any vehicle was just struggling. So they released it and they maybe honestly just thought that it wasn't going to do as well as they wanted to, and they released it at this time just to get it out there. And it was like, that was like peak COVID. They released it, and that was.
But they thought at the launch event, they were like, okay, We think conservatively that maybe 5 to 10% of Mavericks could be hybrids. Maybe we could do, the 20% split, but it seems like demand in Maverick is at least 50% hybrid. Like if they could build 50% of them as hybrids, that's how many they would sell.
Yeah, I mean, if they made a hybrid all-wheel drive, still reasonably priced, I'd buy one.
Yeah,
because I looked into the all-wheel drive one, but I didn't want the EcoBoost because that makes it extremely expensive. I didn't want front-wheel drive because I live in the Pacific Northwest and you need all-wheel drive. If they just gave me the best of both worlds,
it'd be fantastic.
I'd probably sell my Lexus.
Yeah,
I'd probably go buy one. But
I think the realistic answer for now, as far as the answer for that moment, is they don't need to because they sell all the hybrids they can make.
Yeah,
I would expect, because it looks like it's built for it. I mean, obviously it can have rear-wheel drive. There's no structural reason you couldn't. There's an all-wheel drive Escape with the same hybrid system. It would totally work. Until hybrid models are sitting on showroom floors and they need to push them, it's not going to have all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
But you can tell that they were unprepared in the long-term contract phase. Like, if they really thought that Maverick was going to hit and the hybrids were going to hit, they would have signed long-term battery contracts to build the kind of production quantity that we see in 4xe. Yeah. So, like, clearly Jeep knew that plug-in hybrid Wrangler would be a thing. And that's 40% of Wranglers this year have been plug-in hybrids.
Wow.
Which is bonkers.
That is.
And so they didn't just pull these batteries out of nowhere. These are not coming out of thin air. They signed battery contracts 6-7 years ago to get this kind of battery quantity in plug-in hybrid Wranglers.
Yeah.
And Ford simply didn't think that it was going to hit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yep. And with that, it's time to sign off. So everybody hit that subscribe button, or tell your friends to hit the subscribe button since you're probably all subscribers. And you'll see Nick on the channel coming soon in weekly reviews sometime in late June or late July, because we're already in July.
Yep.
Yep.
Already in July.
See everybody later.
See you guys.